What is
Are
the
we
temperature?
recording now, Holly? Yes, we are now recording. Okay. Tom, can I go ahead and start the meeting and then?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So welcome everyone. As a preliminary matter, this is Hillary Hedges Rayport, Chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission. I'd like to confirm that all members are here and can hear me. So I'm going to call everyone's name and you can give me a thumbs up. Holly, can you hear me? Yep, Holly, our staff liaison is here. Thank you. Commissioner Mickey Rowland.
Here.
Commissioner Tom Montgomery.
Here.
Commissioner Clement Durkees.
Here.
Commissioner Angus McLeod. Hi. And
What's going
Commissioner
on with my volume? Sorry, I'll figure it out.
Oh, okay. David Silver.
Here.
Great. Thank you. This open meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order due to coronavirus. To mitigate transmission of coronavirus, we've been advised to suspend public gatherings. So we are now permitted to meet remotely and encouraged to meet remotely. The order is posted with the agenda meetings.
Thank you.
And we can meet remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded. The link for public access is on the agenda, which is posted on our website with the town. We are convening by Zoom app. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. All attendees are participating by video conference. Be aware that people can see you. Mute your microphone. Do not screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. The packet is on our website. I'm going to lead the meeting. Please be sure that you speak clearly so that everything can be captured in the minutes so that we can have an effective meeting here. Holly, can you suspend screen sharing just so, I don't know, just so we can see everyone? Thanks. My screen got hijacked here and I lost my script. Okay, after everyone has commented, if there's anybody here who wants to make a public comment, I will ask for public comment, and every vote will be taken by roll call vote. Okay, I see we have someone else, Angus. So Angus, is that two of you, like just like there's two of me, or do we have someone else here in the meeting? We're not sure. Okay, the first item on the agenda is public comment. I don't see anybody here for public comment, but I just want to check. Is anybody wanting to make a public comment? No. Okay, we do not have any minutes to approve. We're gonna have a little bit of a backlog of minutes because we've been meeting so frequently, but we're moving to meeting monthly, so we should be able to get all caught up on our minutes. And anyway, we have a lot of minutes up, so I don't think we should be bashful about being behind in our minutes. We're actually quite current with our minutes. Announcements. Holly, do you have any announcements?
Well, I can announce about our open house for the Coastal Resiliency Plan, which was last night. There was about 100 and almost 70 people that attended, so it was a great turnout with Arcadis. I think we had some breakout sessions with Zoom, which was pretty cool. And I think there was a lot of good discussion that the town is going to be able to incorporate. And of course, that's just a start. So if you have any questions on the Coastal Resiliency Plan, I'd highly recommend asking Vince Murphy, our Coastal Resiliency Coordinator. And as you would know, that effort is being tied in with our effort with Resilient Nantucket. Also a reminder that the HDC will be looking at the draft design guidelines on February 12th, that Friday. As soon as obviously I receive it for the commissioners to review, we'll probably have that posted for the public to take a look at. I expect that I think sometime next week. So there's that. And I guess if anybody else doesn't have any announcements, do we want to just tie right on into the certified local government?
Well, I have some announcements. So let's, and does anybody else have any announcements? No. Okay, so I have a couple announcements. One is there was an interesting discussion at the select board meeting on Wednesday. There was a public hearing. It was an appeal of an HTC denial of solar panels on roofs. And whenever these appeals come up, I think it's very hard to keep up with the HTC. There's so many discussions, and I know Mickey and Angus, you get to see that up close because of your role on the advisory board, but I do always try to watch the appeals, and I thought it was very interesting, the discussion that happened, and I highly recommend that if anybody who has time, if you could watch the recording. It is the January 27th, 2021 meeting, starting at 1 hour and 58 minutes. And you can set it to play at 1.5 times. There's like 3 little dots in the upper right corner of the YouTube window. And I always click on that and change the playback speed to get rid of all the ahs and ums and slow talking. And I thought it's just good for us to have in our minds kind of how the select board thinks about design review and historic districts and historic design guidelines and renewable energy and how the HDC feels about it. So there was a lot of learning, and maybe we can discuss some of the learning that I took away when we talk about our grant application. The second announcement that I have is about my unexpected publicity around my presentation to the town association. So you'll recall that when we finished our Harbor Place report and we accepted our Harbor Place report, we made a list of who we wanted to share that report with. We decided to share it very broadly and proactively because the whole point of the report was to consolidate information, flag issues for further discussion, have it be kind of a cross discipline discussion. And we included sending it to the Civic League and the Town Association. So anyway, Henry asked me if I would speak at their upcoming meeting, which is something they do all the time. They have a guest speaker. It's a 1-hour meeting that happens monthly. And I've spoken to that group before, and there's usually like 5 to 10 people that come. But it was picked up by Daybreak Nantucket and blurbed, and then Bill Farrell, who writes Daybreak Nantucket, decided, the agenda, which I did not review ahead of time, the agenda from the Town Association just said Hillary had this rate board, Historical Commission, Harbor Place. So he went to the town website and looked to see what he could find about Harbor Place reports and found a 2017 report entitled A New Vision for the Waterfront. I think it was prepared by the owners group, and it had all kinds of pictures in it. And he put that in Daybreak Nantucket, saying that I was going to be talking about a new vision for the waterfront with all of these pictures. So I spent the rest of the day like putting out fires and also asked Bill Farrell if he could please correct the record. I was speaking about our report, only about our report. I was not presenting a new vision for the waterfront, but and he was apologetic, and he did update it in the next day to correct the record. But the good news is 140 people signed up for that talk, and I think about 140 people came. So I think it shows how much interest there is among the public in these planning discussions. And we do see, frankly, not so much engagement. We don't have anybody here at our meeting. People don't come to the planning board meetings. Nobody even knows what the NP and EDC does or is. And they're, talking about this all the time. I talked at their meeting. There was nobody from the public there. So I think it's just a question and learning about public engagement. The interest level is high. The engagement is high when it's something accessible and digestible that they know. So anyway, I did get some positive feedback. I don't know overall what the impression was that people had of that talk. I didn't prepare a lot for the talk. I just didn't have time to make like a fancy presentation. I just discussed, what I was about the report, which obviously I know very well. And I will say that there were a couple public comments, and we didn't have a ton of time for questions. Henry ended the meeting 55 minutes after it started. I mean, it was like the curtain was down and that was it. But there were a couple comments about the parking garage, even though the parking garage has at this point been officially taken off the table as far as discussions from the town. Moving the parking lot, as you know, is not taken off the table, but building a parking garage is not something they're really considering at this point. There were a couple people who spoke up, which would give you the idea that, you know, maybe the public wants a parking garage again. I did have several emails after the fact saying, you know, we don't want a parking garage. So anyway, I will pass all of that on to the town, and that is my announcement about what happened at the Harbor Place briefing through the town association. And now let's hear about the certified local government application. Holly.
So I just want to let the commission know it's official. It's been submitted to Chris Skelly at NMHC. So now it's just waiting.
That's great.
Yes. Yay.
Yeah. I noticed, so we have the application in the packet. I noticed that the MOU things, they weren't checked. I assume they all got checked before it got sent off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously. So we checked off all of these things that we're already doing and will continue to do. And there was some great coverage in the paper. I don't know if you all saw that. So there's an article, Brian interviewed Holly and Diane Coombs and Mary and me talking about this designation and also about our surveys. So Holly, thank you for pushing that along. Thank you to our select board for supporting it. Thank you to our planning director for relenting in the end and accepting it. And I'm very thrilled to have that done. So hopefully we'll be accepted without a problem. And hopefully it will help us get our grant. So let's talk about our survey grant application. The survey grant application is also in the packet. Holly, do you want to share that? So what we did was, you'll wonder, you know, how we got so much amazing writing done in just 2 weeks. A lot of this was taken from the Massachusetts Historical Commission. They have a scope of work that they presented. The exciting update from them, I can't remember if I said this at our last meeting or not, but we've been working very closely with Brian Pfeiffer and Betsy Tyler to advise us on this whole survey plan and how to get these surveys done. And Betsy and Brian, who actually, you know really know about surveying buildings and making plans, said, you know, for a $40,000 project, you really should actually have some surveys. It shouldn't just be a plan. And we recommend picking a spot to survey in addition to the plan. I think I did brief you guys on this when we last spoke. But then amazingly, the MHC gave us the same advice. So they sent us 2 scopes of work, one for the survey plan, which will be a plan for the whole island. And it's going to look at the different geographic areas of the island. It's going to prioritize the areas. It will summarize the areas. It will decide, you know, maybe some places we just want to do an area plan. Some places we want to do structure by structure. So it's going to be pretty interesting in and of itself, and I think useful. But then we will also do in-depth, intensive, community-wide survey, building by building, of the fish lots, which Betsy and Holly estimated to be about 250 structures. And this will be done, assuming we are able to start the project in June or July, as we expect. It will be finished within 1 year. So what we did was kind of mush together the scope of work for the survey plan and the specific surveys. We have some, Holly, do you want to walk everybody through, just kind of for the record and for the recording, about what's going to be in this grant, since you have control of the document there?
Sure. So of course you've got your attachment A with all the applicable information, our funding request, and then obviously signed by Director. So this is the survey plan objective, which is what Hillary was outlining. And then our pilot survey objectives, along with the methodology that's required. And of course, this is all the boilerplate that's required. And thank you, Hillary, for facilitating all that with our meetings. And then our survey plan, which you basically, one of the things that not everybody is keen on is that in 1984, MHC basically in the 80s did a lot of recognitive surveys within the Commonwealth, and they haven't done anything since. And they came up with some recommendations. So it'd be nice to indicate those and how we can move this along. This is indicating the pilot survey itself. And then our hybrid scope of work. With our phases. And our field surveys. This is what we wanted to talk about, right? Was the actual amount of time to actually facilitate that.
Yeah,
And hopefully we'll get that from some guidance from MHC.
You know, we can still change this. So I think we do want feedback from the commissioners about exactly what, you know, Holly, can I share my screen? Because then I can look at it and I just want to describe
absolutely.
a little bit so that we can get the feedback that we want. Where's my packet? Oh, wait, I know. Go away. It's over here. Okay, here we go.
Just for the record, I wanted to let everybody know that if you're trying to email anybody in the town, like myself today, we're having issues with our server. They were working on it. And I have no access to email today. Nobody does.
Oh,
so,
wow.
just so you know.
Enjoy the holiday. No access to email sounds blissful. Okay, so we have these objectives, reviewing and confirming the areas, confirm the key documentary material. So that's the information that we have. You know, we spent a lot of time when we talked about how to start this survey about where the information actually is, and the fact that we have information in files. We have searchable digitized information at the NHA and the newspaper archive. We have information at the Registry of Deeds, but then we also have all this information at Preservation Institute Nantucket. So we're going to get a bibliography together. Then step 3, a narrative description of each identified geographic area and its cultural significance. I want to go back to that point a little bit in the context of the discussion I heard on Wednesday about the solar panels. Someone remind me of that if I forget, okay? To complete an inventory and community-wide survey of the fish lots, to develop an action plan for implementing priority survey goals for the creation of the comprehensive inventory. So once we have the plan, we need to have an action plan about what areas we're going to look at first, why, and that's going to include threats. So which areas are threatened, which areas are most rich in resources, and then a phased historical properties inventory proposal package with time and cost estimates. So basically an action plan and cost plan and time plan so that we can start to march through this and have an idea of how long it's going to take. All right, so then we also, that's for the plan. Then we also have objectives for the pilot survey, which is the survey of the fish lots, which is to survey and assess and document 250 cultural, approximately 250 cultural and architectural resources in the area, following the standards of the MHC. So this is going to be a professional, best in class kind of thing. This isn't going to be like graduates. Well, I'm a graduate student, so I shouldn't actually say bad things about graduate students, but we might have some graduate student reports, but they're going to have a accredited professional helping them. Then this is all done in context of the National Register evaluation. Our whole island is on the National Register. We're not going to be nominating properties for listing on the National Register, but we will be determining whether or not a property is qualified to be listed on the National Register. And this gets to the contributing or non-contributing nature of any properties. And one of the really important things that we want to end up with this pilot survey is we want to be able to talk to have each inventory form be possible for the HDC to look at it and interpret the level of significance or lack of significance, and which features about the building are significant or not significant, and why. So this is really, we are doing this for a specific purpose, which is to help the HDC do their job, as well as to help scholars and visitors and historians, and homeowners. I think this will be pretty interesting for homeowners. Okay, so then we included a goal 4. This was a new goal that we put in, it wasn't in the boilerplate, which is to submit to the town of Nantucket the inventory and survey data for incorporation into the town GIS as a parcel layer. So the whole planning department runs on GIS. You know, nobody runs on Duncan, it's Nantucket, but they run on GIS. And we want to get this information in there because then it won't be lost. It'll be regularly accessible and it'll be top of mind. Okay, so the analytical framework, you know, one of the phrases in here that I really love is cultural resources are the physical elements in the landscape that remain from historical patterns of human activity. And I think, you know, I hope through this process, all of us and anybody listening to us gets, and, you know, the people working on this get a real understanding of what we mean when we say cultural resources, because yes, there, you know, there is an element of judgment. I think that can seem quite scary to people. And I think people can also feel like, well, why are we even doing this? I mean, like, what does this funny little building back here really mean to anybody? That's gone, so we don't know what it is, but if it were still there, people would probably think it was interesting. Okay, the project has phases, so this is where having a boilerplate from the MHC was super helpful, because we have the survey plan and the pilot survey described, and then we have the phases defined. The initiation of work. And this comes from the Mass Historical Commission's long experience with running these surveys. I'm not going to read each one of these, but basically we make sure that this is broken up into manageable pieces, that each phase has a deliverable and each phase has a timeline. We're going to start, you know, at the end of the summer, we have to hire the consultant through a procurement process. So hopefully this will be done by Friday, November 5th. And then we have, you know, all these different phases. I'm going to let you look through this. And this is something I have emailed Michael Steinitz and Charlie Stott about, to try to, you know, check in with them, make sure this makes sense to them. So this might change. We do have to mail this next week. Then this is a lovely narrative statement written by Holly. And then we had an area at the end, provide any other information, and we put in a lot of the language from our pre-application, which you already saw in there. Then this is the area where we still have a fair amount of work. Holly, do you have any update? Were you able to talk with Andrew about the various attachments that need to be completed and signed?
Unfortunately, due to COVID, I'm only in the office now that they're in school on Mondays and Tuesdays, and my schedule on Monday and Tuesday was not able. As a matter of fact, the only time I saw Andrew when I was in the office was Tuesday night while I was engaged in HDC, and he had walked around the corner. Unfortunately, the schedule was different.
What about Zoom? I mean, could I suggest you guys get together on Zoom? That's how everyone's
well.
working. I mean,
let me
we did this
finish.
whole thing.
I will be in the office. I will be in the office on Monday and Tuesday for obviously HDC, and those are the days my daughter is physically in school. I usually speak to Andrew while I'm in the office one of those days. So I plan on sitting down with him and going over these assurances. So it'll be done next week. I'm sorry I couldn't get it done prior, but
that's okay. No,
I
know you're doing your best. So this has to be delivered in their hands physically on the 8th. So when, Holly, are you comfortable putting it in the priority mail or FedEx package? The 8th is Monday, a week from Monday.
Right. hopefully I can do it the earliest on Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay. All right. Are there any questions about the subject of the grant, the proposals, the scopes of work, before I talk about that thing that I was thinking about with the geographic areas? Yes, Tom.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to talk about the narrative description, but I also, you'd mentioned a little while ago when you were talking about would be great for the neighbors and the people, the homeowners. I know this isn't part of what we're actually submitting here, but does anyone think that we should send out something on our own from the commission, just as a notification to the homeowners in the fish lots that we are actually going to conduct this survey in their area? So when they see groups going around, with clipboards and stopwatches, so to speak, it doesn't alarm them, but that lets them know exactly what we are doing. I know the newspaper, has stated that, but there are a lot of people that are away that aren't going to see any of that.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, two ideas that come to mind are we could mail a notice to 250 people. I think that's a little excessive, and who would run that mailing, and that's a lot of work to do. We could also ask if the select board would announce it. I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I was just thinking putting a special notification in the paper that just notifies everybody, then you cover everybody with one sheet.
Yeah, so maybe we could include that. We'd have to include that as an expense, a notice in the paper. Holly, do you think that's a good idea?
That would be a good idea. I would say, let's, go through the process, submit, and hopefully we get this, and then we can do that. I think notification would be good. It's also something that I can work with Florencia, our public outreach coordinator for the town, so they can also get it out on social media, on the website, within the town manager's newsletter that she does. If you actually are on that email list, went out yesterday, you'll see some things about us and the CLG and all these different things that we're working on. So that's something that I have the capability of being able to disseminate information through the town manager's newsletter. So that's a good thing too.
I was just thinking that maybe not necessarily now, but when it's closer to the time when they're actually going to do the work, so people are more
Right.
aware of what's going on.
I
Yep.
agree with that. Notification is important.
Good idea. I guess I would just say, when we have to put that budget together, if we want to do a paid listing, I think it's like $300 or something to put something in the paper. I don't know if we need to account for it or not. Maybe we can just account generally for an basket of expenses, but just a thought. So the question I had is, when we think about these, I guess my question really is about making sure we capture the needs of the HDC. We developed this on our own. I didn't get any input from the HDC on this, because every time I try to get input from the HDC, I get no response, or I get told that they're too busy or whatnot. That's not totally fair, but that's how it feels. I mean, I do hear back from the HDC, but there was all this talk about, well, the solar panel on the roof in this area can you treat this area the same as, if you wanted to put it on Orange Street facing the street? And, these other solar panels are in commercially zoned areas, and should they be treated differently? I thought, one of the things that this survey might do is help define, not on a zoning level, but on a character level, different areas of the island. And could we do that in partnership with the HDC to help guide them on how to think about their discretion in applying their standards based on summary information about an area? Comments?
As liaison to both commissions, I can tell you, and I think this is a understanding from all of HDC themselves, is they have a set of standards for sustainability within building with Nantucket in mind. One of those addendums has not been codified, but it's fairly clear. They don't want it. They want it visible. Black roof, not on anything else. Not on a main mass, a subordinate mass. Very, very clear. I will preface this with that I do know the application that was appealed. I did not partake or watch the select board meeting this week. 1 week that I have not done that in many, many weeks. So I apologize. I can't talk into the specifics, but it's been identified that their design guidelines for solar needs to be looked at a little bit in depth, but it's fairly clear on how and
Holly,
what
I'm
and where. But what I'm
sorry,
getting,
I just,
but
my
just
comment
wanted to
wasn't
get
about the
into.
solar panels. So I don't want to, my
No, I
comment wasn't
know.
about that application. It was about like, should we, and how can we, and do we need to do it before Wednesday? Get the HDC to look at this and say, and do we want to like clarify anything about the study plan? Relating
Right. I was trying to
yeah.
work my way.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was trying to
sorry.
work my way into this conversation. So what I do think that with our survey planning aspect, to have to kind of figure out what would be applicable. For instance, we're looking at fish lots as our pilot, right? There are quite a few dark roofs within the fish lots. I'm not advocating that every single historic structure in the fish lots get solar, but I'm also not against it. I'm stating the fact that, they have approved solar on historic structures through the lenses of Historic Structures Advisory Board with some high criticism, which is good, as well as myself, to try to have this happy medium between renewable energy and retaining our historic structures. And that, so my point is, we could put something in here for the pilot to say, maybe outlining that X amount of structures within this area meet the criteria or have roofs that meet the criteria for solar. I'm trying to figure out where you're going with that, but I think that may be beneficial. And I also will say this is, I review the like kinds for the HDC. So I review 99% of them. And we have a list that were approved by the HDC of the type of colors, whether they're architectural or 3-tab, that are allowed within the old historic districts. And there are due to manufacturers, I'm kind of going out, I got a point here. Due to manufacturers, there are colors that have been phasing out. For instance, seafoam green is a very typical color that you see, but that's started to phase out because the manufacturers are not allowing them. So there are colors that will incorporate that, and they'd rather have a darker color within the old historic district. So just maybe where this survey format with the pilot could help is to identify those particular structures that would be better to incorporate solar. Maybe that's what I do also want to just end on that particular application was not in the old historic district, just for people that may be not keen on that application.
And there might be an interest among the commissioners in doing that. That's actually not what I was thinking about at all, that we try to use this survey to forecast what could or couldn't be appropriate as far as future changes with additions like that. I was more thinking about, we're going to be defining all of these geographic areas. And the question is, we have different uses on our island, and we have this concept that our whole island is historic, but we have industrial areas. So just recognizing that the area plans, when we look at the geographic areas and we have a survey, and some of these, we're not going to be surveying structures because they're not old or they're not contributing, but we probably could do an area plan. And in the area plan of that particular geographic area or neighborhood, we would be able to have a narrative that would have a summary of the character of the neighborhood, the general age of the buildings, the way the area is used, and that might be a useful background for the HDC to have discussions about how they exercise their judgment in deciding what is appropriate. So that was what I was bringing up, and it might be that it's just better to talk about it around the table with the consultant, but at some point we really need the HDC to be at the table being part of this discussion.
I
Holly,
think
I see
that's
Ralphie.
definitely, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I definitely, I think the HDC does want to, but I mean, when you're receiving 150 to 160 applications a week, there's just no bandwidth for that. But yes, you know, we're going to be required to have CLG meetings between the two commissions together, having that kind of discussion. How that fits in with this phase of our survey plan, I don't know, but I do want to say I appreciate that thought. As again, the staff liaison between both commissions and understanding the two different roles, and I you know, I don't know. It's a good idea to work on. I just don't know. Do we want to be able to put that in here now, or I don't know.
Yes, Angus.
Maybe this is something that we should put on our agenda, but I feel like there needs to be a systemic plan about renewable energy and solar and the historic cores. I feel like it has to be so piecemeal of how much solar can you fit onto a 200-year-old house in the middle of town that is invisible. And I think it makes so much more sense to have a huge field of available space for the people in town, in Sconset, in sensitive areas where they can invest in so many panels in a remote field rather than trying to fit these into downtown. I feel like it would be more productive, easier to install, takes the HDC off the hook of, you know, what are we allowing in town? Anyway, I think it's a bigger discussion than
Yeah.
right here, right now, but
I
just
appreciate
review.
that, Angus. And we didn't have solar on our agenda, so I don't really think we can have a discussion about all that. But did you want to say anything about the survey grant application?
I is the survey grant as far as solar policy and neighborhoods.
No, really, I think the question at hand is, so what we're asking the commission right now is to accept this draft of the grant so that we can file it on Wednesday. And the question at hand is, does anybody think that we need to, you know, make any changes to this regarding anything? Does anybody request any changes to the grant application?
It's so broad and well written. I think that it includes everything that we want in there at this point.
Okay.
And I think a number of the things that would be surveyed in the fish lots, to Tom's point about notification, probably a number of them have already been surveyed by Preservation Institute Nantucket and MPT for their survey rating system of historic houses and what has integrity left. So there might be a mailing list or something that we can get through one of those organizations.
Okay, Mickey, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, you mentioned creating like an area map to identify different, I assume sort of architectural differences between different types of structures, and maybe referencing the map on each of the surveys. It sounds like what you're talking about. And I think that that's a great idea. It's something that they kind of already do. They kind of take the area into consideration, but to have a little bit more, more specific information as to what area, like coastal areas, Brant Point areas, Monomoy, Sconset, they all have sort of different characters, obviously downtown. So I think it's, there's overlap and gray edges, but I think it would be helpful for the board just to know, it's sort of obvious, but I think it would be helpful for either the homeowner or the board to know what area we're talking about.
So we have a goal, which is to produce a narrative description of each identified geographic area and its historic and cultural significance, and to identify the historic resources in the area. Given that our entire island is a historic district, do we want to put an addendum to this goal number 3 that says something? I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay, so it's this 3, to produce a narrative description. Do we want to put anything else about, so we say it's historic and cultural significance and identify resources. Do we want to make anything to, its historic and cultural significance and its current pattern of use?
There's also, if we're talking about surveys and specific properties, there's sort of an architectural character style of building within each area too, which sure is covered in this number 3.
I think adding some additional language, because I'll tell you why I'm getting at this. You know what, let's go. I want to look at can I ask for a vote to approve this with some latitude for Holly and Tom and I've been working informally with Tom on this, to tweak that if we come to some conclusion. Okay, Holly, are you okay with that?
Make a motion.
Okay, so the motion is to accept this draft grant proposal, to continue to prepare to file it on next Wednesday, which is the 3rd of February, with some possible tweaks to the survey plan goal number 3.
Yes.
And of course, the timeframes and the exhibits. And it sounds like, Angus, are you okay with moving that?
I move it.
Okay, second.
And I second it.
Thank you, Clement. Mickey,
Aye.
David,
You get that?
okay. Tom, I see Tom's hand going up, and I am also an aye. All right, thank you very much. Holly, I'll follow up with you and Tom about that. Okay, this discussion that we're having about guidelines, I think we might want to have in the context of our OKRs and key results. So I'm sharing right now we worked on this at our last meeting. I've put it in this form. So the idea here is to have a couple objectives. Sorry, this is filled with typos, for which I apologize. I'll have to go fix all this typos, but to have some big objectives that will further our mission and help the island. And then to have some key results that, will be difficult, but we think we can achieve or mostly achieve. That if we focus on getting these key results accomplished, we will achieve our objective. So I'd really like to have some discussion and feedback on these because I want to ask to approve these. And this is basically, this is not a to-do list, but it is kind of a work plan. And this is where we're going to put our effort for the year. So the first objective is to increase the protection of historic resources by town administration and all elected leaders. And the key results proposed are that the survey grant is awarded and implemented. The town administration and select board adopt a policy for historic pavement, at least one joint meeting with HDC. And this is the one that, you know, I think we need to talk a lot about. NHC evaluates and makes recommendations about guidelines to the HDC. Because this is just so fundamental with protecting our structures. You know, the HDC has a lot of power there. Quarterly written reports to town administration and other boards to keep everybody up to date with what we're working on and what we've accomplished or not accomplished. The planning board and the planning commission deliberations always consider preservation. Objective 2, increase support for preservation among key associations, builders, real estate agents, homeowners, and the broadly defined public. Preservation groups from a coalition and form a coalition and program Preservation Month 2022. We're already working on that. NHC evaluates and creates a plan to reach home builders and realtors who might actually not implement it, but we'll work on that, on getting a plan. NHC conceives of one initiative to connect Nantucket communities of color with historic preservation. NHC identifies and plans 3 public programs that inspire preservation by offering training, resources, or connecting cultural history to current cultural values. So this is our time, you know, we're a public body, so we have to deliberate this in public. This is our time to hear from everyone. I know it's a lot to digest. I'd love to hear from the commissioners. Does anybody want to volunteer to make comments?
I'm happy to start.
Okay, Angus, great.
I think these are great objectives, and the key results I think are very well articulated for how we meet these objectives. I really like it. It is a lot to digest, but just looking it over, it all makes total sense.
I'd like to ask a question about the key results. Is that a score of 1.0 and we are 0.6, or how are we reading that?
Yeah, so the way the number scale works is that, you know, we'll check in on this quarterly, and we are on target if, you know, relative to what we expect to. So the idea is to get to 1 by the end of the year. And if we feel we are on target with getting to 1 by the end of the year, we give ourselves something in the yellow range, 0.6 to 0.7. If we feel like we are behind where we should be, it's going to be red. And, you know, if we feel like, you know, we're getting close to achieving it, they should be turning green by the end of the year. Now, the way this works, the idea is to set a stretch goal with the expectation that you're not going to achieve everything. Okay, so we should be very happy if we get 0.8 on some of these. And I imagine that some of these we won't be able to really achieve. So that's how the score works. So for instance, the survey grant is awarded and implemented. Obviously, we're on track with that. And so it's probably going to hover around the mid-range until we get somebody hired. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'd like to talk a little bit about this idea that we would evaluate and make recommendations about guidelines to the HDC. So this has been something we tried to do earlier by we had a meeting. We went to one of their meetings, so it was pre-COVID. I was there with Mickey and I think Georgia. And we talked with them, and we didn't really get a warm and fuzzy reception. It was like, these are our guidelines, who are you? But at the same time, we're seeing that maybe some help would be welcome. And at any rate, this is the public, this is government, and it's a free country, and we can speak up. They don't have to listen to us. They don't have to change their guidelines. But we could certainly try to convince them. We can certainly share our opinion. That's just the kind of what I would put out there as an idea, and I'd love to hear what people think about it. Mickey, you must have some comments about this.
Well, I think the HDC is getting used to us. It's a process, I think. And I think that, we're showing that we're relevant, and we have important things to say. And I think they'll eventually accept that. And, I think they know they need help with guidelines. And I think that we have the resources to do it. And that's one area that I think we can be of real benefit to them. They're going to be pretty protective of their guidelines because they're the ones that make the decisions. But I think they haven't shown that they have the time to spend time working on it, and hopefully we will. And I think we should. And maybe once we show them what we can do, they'll be appreciative and like it. So I think it's a great goal.
Okay, thank you, Clement.
Yeah, Freddie and I are commenting that these are very lofty goals you've set, Hillary. And I think this is exactly what we should be doing. I think that the survey results will help the HDC immensely if we get kind of the cultural situation of all the areas of Nantucket outlined. And I understand that they are just so busy they can't do all of this. So I hope that by providing this to them, they will read it and use it. So I think everything looks really long range and a good thing to set our goals to for the next year. And then I'm sure some things will continue over many more years. But looks really good.
Okay, thank
gonna
you.
Shut Freddie up.
Oh, okay. Tom, is there anything else you wanted to say, or David, or we have Mary here as a guest? Just unmute and shout out if anybody wants to comment on or express any questions or any personal enthusiasm for any of these goals. Okay. Holly, do you feel you could support these goals, or are there any goals you have a problem with?
Well, I really truly think having a goal to create a preservation plan would be important. Just like how we're trying to create a survey plan to tackle our ginormous amount of cultural resources to survey. A survey or a preservation plan would be very beneficial. If everybody's not familiar with a preservation plan, I can send you MHC's little pamphlet on what preservation plans are. But they usually, each state really kind of defines what the State Historic Preservation Offices define on what they recommend. Preservation plans aren't a requirement for commissions, but it's something that is geared highly upon and would be recommended from a lot of preservation folks. They usually outline, the history of preservation and planning and what your inventory is. But one of the biggest things is about creating an action plan. there's three main steps that it creates is identification, evaluation, and protection. But it also kind of gives you that prioritization of how to do things. Tells you, you kind of figure out what's in your toolbox, so to speak, figure out who your stakeholders are, excuse me, proper English. But really how to achieve all these different little goals that we have set up. So that would be just my recommendation is maybe taking a step back and saying, how can we achieve all these? Some of these I see we're going to be able to achieve hopefully through the CLG requirements, having at least one joint meeting with the HDC. Well, that's going to be a requirement, the CLG. So we're going to have to do that. Goals are great, I think, but having a plan, achieving them, just like the survey plan, would be beneficial. I'll send that out whenever my email is fixed, so everybody has.
And we did have a meeting, Holly, I think early last year, where we looked at the St. Augustine plan, and you shared it. And you sent all of that stuff to HDC too, so we had that in our either the smaller meeting or the bigger meeting with the HDC. So it's a very well taken point. I think that is a important goal for Nantucket, but I'm not sure it's a goal for this year. And the reason why I say that is because we're already doing planning, right? We're doing a survey plan, which is going to teach us a lot about what we need as far as preservation plan. It's going to teach us a lot about our island and the different areas of our island and what's really there that's worth saving. So I think it's kind of a first step towards this survey plan, preservation plan. And the other thing is, I just think at the end of the day, what was that line that Lisa Craig used in our training? Plans are useless, but planning is invaluable. And we want to save cultural resources on Nantucket. We don't want our island to become just an island-wide luxury resort with new buildings geared to whatever the fad of the moment is. We want to identify and retain our heritage, our special visual quality, this history of Nantucket being a world apart, timeless. And Mr. Market, which is the phrase of, the free market, that we're all part of that, we all buy into that. If we will not have these things if we don't actually figure out how to save what we have. And that means we need to get our town administration and all our elected leaders to think it's important, to recognize, I know they think it's important. They absolutely think it's important, but we have to help them recognize what there is to save and recognize what they're doing that is degrading what we have. And the key owners of these resources, they're privately owned. So that the goal 1 affects the public sphere, but goal 2 is the private sphere. If we don't inspire people and just inspire people to want heritage assets, then it's going to be a battle we will not win. People have to want to do it because they're inspired, and we give them tools. We make it, maybe we educate them about tax programs or federal or state programs that can help them make things more affordable. So I just think we could have the best preservation plan in the world, but if we don't get our elected leaders and the general public recognizing and valuing these things, no, we're just not going to be successful.
I think that's
Well,
exactly
on that note, sorry,
I
guess, do you want to go ahead and then we'll hear from Holly?
No, I was just agreeing with you. There's got to be buy-in from the key players, which are primarily the private owners, and the trend is really about location more than the actual historic fabric of a house. It's about, I want to be in town or wherever, and it's about the view they get and the open space that they get in their homes, and lower on the priority list is saving historic fabric and preserving our historic resources. So I think it's about raising awareness and appreciation for what we do have, but it is every week it goes a little bit more. So I think it's going to be a race against time to raise this awareness before it's gone.
Thank you, Angus. Holly?
I just wanted to mention that preservation plans can be very, very complicated, like St. Augustine is robust, I should say, or they can be very, very simple. But one thing that preservation plans do, it's about building that that community around preservation that are get people interested. It's about informing those that are uninformed, and getting the that are indifferent to preservation in general, that don't really quite grasp it. I will say that preservation plans also can be incorporated within comprehensive or master plans within communities. So think of it that way. You know, it definitely a goal. I definitely agree with Hillary that it's something that would be a little bit too much to get to this year. I agree with that. But there's already framework associated with historic preservation within the town's framework itself. Obviously, they wouldn't have been supportive of reenacting the commission through a lot of advocacy, through quite a bit of us, and also creating my position as the first preservation planner for the town. Also, the select board does have their strategic plan. And a lot of people don't realize that their definition of their strategic plan is around the principles of sustainability. Well, what's included within the principle of sustainability but preservation? Their I guess what you say, their marching orders within the strategic plan is identifying sustainability as how the town of Nantucket will focus on what's the first thing? Historic preservation. So I just wanted to let you all know this is a document that the town's been working on, our leaders, that the select board has adopted, and they're looking more towards incorporating sustainability in the overall component of it. There's a lot of different things, I think, in the world of sustainability and preservation that could work hand in hand. Is it something that Justice Commission could handle? No, but we can definitely have a part of it. There's the housing production plan that they're working on. I will tell you this, that if you we're not familiar with the open house that the housing production plan update had recently, I think about a few weeks ago, is we've always, we're at this pinnacle point of just the commission, the historic district commission realizes the amount of the reason why we have so many different applications before them is the amount of sales that have happened. And I know David could attest to this. What was there, $1.8 billion of real estate sales this past year alone during a pandemic? It's crazy. And what does that do? These people that obviously their pockets are very deep. They're buying their second and third home. They're buying lots that have a full stretch of structures on it already, ready to go, but nope, that's not good, and they want to tear it down. There was an application before the commission. I know Angus can attest to this because it was reviewed by Sconset Advisory Board. Structure is not historic. That's fine. But the fact of the matter is sustainability is the key thing. And how do we achieve this? We have a housing issue on Nantucket. How can we grapple all these different things together? So I just wanted to leave the note that it's more than just preservation. It's more than just this commission. It's a town and island wide concern. I actually have some emails I need to follow up with. My email is back up and running, but I just wanted to throw that out there to you. Also, after the camp that we had with NAPC, the fact that we had it virtual this year due to the pandemic, there was an opportunity to provide us with some, basically a SWOT. What's our weaknesses? What are our strengths? objectives and things that they recommend for us to do. This is something that I will be sharing with, I have not sent it out to town admin and the planning director, but I also plan on sharing it with the chairs, Hillary and Ray, so you're aware of it, and then obviously through you all as commissioners. But one of the first and foremost thing that you will be very happy on that they recommended was to become a certified local government. So we're on that stretch. But the second thing is to launch some sort of preservation planning process. So, you know, I think that's something that we need to take into consideration. Again, they don't have to be large documents, just outlining how preservation can be exactly this, what you have in here. Where is it? Yeah, planning board and planning commission deliberating always under preservation. How can we make sure that preservation is included within the conversation of planning on Nantucket besides just the
So-
local special act?
So Holly, you know, I'm so glad you brought all of these things up, and I'm going to suggest that we change this thing I have highlighted, planning board, to include the select board. I mean, it says elected officials at the top, but really it's everyone. I think the select board does a lot more than the planning board, frankly, or the more importantly, the planning commission. But that's my opinion. But anyway, I would like to suggest that we consider this year, you know, we got so much done since we started. We've launched our survey plan. We've applied to be a certified local government. We published our an entire proposed guideline about pavement that's really well organized and implementable. And that this year, we think about this as really connecting with the needs of the community and connecting with actually implementing preservation with the tools that are available now. And that will set us up in combination with the work that we're doing on survey planning for a preservation plan in the near future. And that we keep that in mind. I also just want to touch quickly on this idea of sustainability. So I started my graduate work and I had my classes this week. One of my classes is preservation planning, and one of my assignments is to monitor a historical commission, which is pretty hilarious. But anyway, it is really, really interesting to hear about some of the conversations in preservation beyond this little bubble we live in on Nantucket. And it is all about exactly what Holly is talking about, which is preservation is livability. These houses, you know, they're old, but they're not necessarily historic. In many places, they're not protected. But do we want to just take down what we have, especially when what we have can never be built again because of zoning code changes or because of materials just being different or styles being different? So this whole movement about recognizing, and this might really be relevant to Nantucket, that maybe we end up saying, you know, after we do this work, we have communities, they're not historic, but they are part of our community. They're livable, they're pleasant, they're different. They might one day be historic. And, you know, maybe what we end up saying to the HDC is we want you to have some conservation areas or, you know, some different term. It's not historic, it's in a different category. But what can we do in the name of livability, in the name of sustainability, in the name of distinctiveness to preserve some of these places because it's the right thing to do. So I don't expect us to like delve into that, but that's kind of a leitmotif I think Holly's getting at. I know Angus has spoken about it publicly in comments on advisory boards about demolitions. And, you know, let's get into it this year. I think it'll be really fun. So I'm going to suggest, just in the interest of time, that I change this highlighted one to include the select board. And I didn't hear any other comments. So could I have a motion, unless anybody wants to jump in with a 11th hour comment, to adopt these as our goals for the year?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Thank you, Angus. Mickey,
Aye.
Clement,
Aye.
David? Is David with us? Okay, thank you, David. And I am an aye Terrific, guys. Time to get to work. Okay, we have something else to talk about on our agenda with the remaining time. Quick update. I did speak with Libby about our goals for historic streets. You know, as far as conversations with Libby, honestly, I feel somewhere between a fly in the ointment and a skunk at the picnic. And that's just the role I have to play. It's unfortunate. It's on our goal to change that role, but she did say, I will work with Rob McNeil and my colleagues to look at a policy about historic pavement. The select board did have their meeting last week where they talked about their warrant, and they officially yanked the bylaw from the warrant. They don't want a bylaw, they want to have a policy. But then they've also told me, Dawn has told me she cares about preservation, but a pavement policy is not a priority. Libby has said, you know, it's not a priority, but we'll work on it. I say, if you have fixing sidewalks as a priority in the downtown area, then you need to have a policy for preservation. Libby asked me to make sure that we survey the interesting objects in the sidewalk. So she was referring to, like, there's this interesting random marble block that's in the sidewalk by the town building. And these are some of the details that we've certainly cared about. And, you know, part of our policy, step number 2, is if you're going to flag a sidewalk to be fixed, you need to walk the sidewalk and survey with somebody, you know, who knows about these things, and survey and document the historic resources. So when the engineer draws up the plan, they're noted to be saved. So that's the sort of thing we want in the policy. So this is just, I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but we are going to be working to pressure the select board and the town. They said they want to do it. Let's do it. Let's get our policy in place. So I worked on that a little bit last week and we'll continue. Let's talk about the Sparks Pleasant Street, Williams Avenue review.
Can I?
So-
can I have one comment?
Oh, yeah,
before we move
Tom.
on? I happened to pick up that report when it was printed, and I saw it. I just want to report to everyone on the board what a fantastic job you have done in getting that thing ready. It was so professional. It was that I don't know how anyone could not appreciate all the work and effort that went into that. And I'm glad that you're really pressing this with the town. It's a little bit discouraging to hear what you just reported from Libby and the planning board and the director and all that. It just, what we're trying to do is very, very important stuff. And I think that that report says everything you need to know about it. I just wanted to compliment you, Hillary. You did a great job, man, as well as everybody else in working on it. It really came out well.
Well, thank you, Tom. And I want to thank Tom because when I had my call scheduled with Libby, I really wanted her to have, even though I've sent this digital copy to everybody, you know, well, not everybody, I actually still need to send it out to more people. I wanted her to have a physical copy. So we had 4 copies printed, and then Tom picked it up at the Island Print Shop and shuttled it over to Libby. So she had a copy. She has a physical copy now, and we'll send one to Dawn and one to Jason, because as the chair and vice chair of the select board, they're the ones that are going to decide what priority this policy has. Okay, we really need to
I
move
got
on,
breaking
Holly,
news.
quickly. Okay.
I got news from Chris Skelly.
Oh,
Good stuff.
Oh, good.
I am pleased to let you know that the town of Nantucket meets the qualifications to become a CLG.
Oh,
I have attached a
wow.
certification agreement that will need signature from your select board, so I'll get on that one. Once I receive it back, I will submit the application checklist and certification agreement to the National Park Service for their approval. Yay!
Oh, awesome. That has to be the fastest
Excellent.
turnaround
Yes.
any public official has ever done. You know, it's so
Yes.
wonderful to have the support from the state on this.
Yes, it is. To be honest with you, I sent it in the mail, but then he emailed me and said, "Hey, is there any way to email it?" So I was able to get it all in there and scan it into 4 different documents and get it to him. So yes, thank you,
Well,
everybody.
Hillary,
This is
I mean,
great.
so
Good
now
stuff.
you have email, Dawn. I mean, Holly, you have email.
Yes, no, that's
got
well.
your
I was
email
sitting
back.
here waiting for it to go through, and that was
Yeah.
one of them.
That's
So,
That's
great.
very exciting.
fantastic.
Good
Great
job,
news.
Holly.
Great job,
news,
Holly. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about the Section 106 street review. So this is a situation where the town would like to improve the network of sidewalks in this area. I think that it's going to be a very popular project. We certainly support it. I would love to have better, safer sidewalks in that area. We have Mickey Rowland on our commission, who is a cyclist and the chair of the Commission on Disabilities. I think you all know I'm a big cyclist and a walker. We have people with children. You know, I have kids who use bike paths. So just, you know, for the public record, we are really, really excited about better sidewalks and bike multi-use paths. What we're also very determined about is to make sure that Nantucket retains its special visual quality and doesn't start looking like a suburb. So I did get together Mickey and Ben to talk about this. We're not an official subcommittee, but you know, we just took it upon ourselves to have a conversation. We looked at the plans. We spent about an hour and a half on it. And we talked about, you know, one, there's this clear cut of historic resources and protecting them. There are archaeological issues with this plan that the Massachusetts Historical Commission has already flagged, mainly the possibility of human remains underneath the street and sidewalk along Sparks Ave. So if they send in bulldozers to dig up the side of the road to build a 9-foot path, which is the plan along the Newtown Cemetery, they might encounter human remains. It's not at all uncommon on Nantucket for that to be the case. So the MHC has asked for an archaeological study, which, you know, I guess they would use ground penetrating radar, or they might do some sample studies. It would be an archaeologist that would do that and recommend, you know, what to do about this to honor, relocate, avoid the human remains. The other issue, so there's the actual historic resources, there's the human remains. The other issue is the special visual quality. And we spent some time talking about this, whether or not this was in our purview. And we decided that, you know, keeping Nantucket as a landmark, looking rural, not looking like a suburb, looking a world away. Mickey, would you feel, am I speaking correctly when I said that we felt that that was an important part of our mandate, an important part of feedback that we could give on this project?
Definitely. I mean, there are different areas within this sidewalk or the road improvement area. There's the sort of the mid-island commercial area, and then there's the out of just beyond that by the Boys Club, the cemetery, and Pleasant Street areas that are just slightly different. So they'll have different characters to them.
Yeah. So things like the treatment of the curbs, this concept plan doesn't include signage. There is a sign bylaw as a citizens warrant being proposed by Kevin Kuster this at town meeting. But we didn't talk about signs. We just talked about the widths of the paths, the curbs, and things like that. Does anybody else have any concerns about our commenting on treatments, road treatments, materials, as far as how our roads end up looking and feeling from a visual quality perspective?
I think these are all elements that that create the character or maintain the character of what we know of Nantucket. So I think all this makes sense for us as a historical commission to comment on.
Thank you, Angus. Anyone else? Okay, Clement's giving a thumbs up. Tom, do you want to say anything about that?
The 9-foot sidewalks are what concerns me.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
So as a comparison, the path, the multi-use path along Milestone Road is 10 feet wide. The old multi-use paths, like out to Nantucket, I think that's 8 feet wide. Am I right about that, Mickey?
I think it's narrower. I think you're right about 8 feet.
I think it's 8 feet. So that used to be the standard and now it's 10 feet. So what I can do is I haven't really prepared a report for the group about this, summarizing our conversation, but I can go through. Please try to stick with me. I don't want to share the plan because there are just a lot of details on the plan and the screen is small. You guys all have the plan. It's been emailed to you, so you can certainly pull it up. Basically, there's a lot of pages about the existing conditions, and then the concept plan starts on sheet 14. And I also want to say this is going to take forever to get done. There's so many impacts on utilities. They have to like figure out how to move telephone poles. There's nothing for this project in the capital improvement plan for this year. I think it's just, you know, they're pulling down money from the Complete Streets program to pay for planning. Nobody from the DPW or the planning department has come to talk to us about this. So we're just looking at the plans.
Well,
Yes, Holly.
I do just want to mention that this was the application that before Mike left, that he came to me on their original submittal to MHC. So him and Beta asked me as the plan, you know, the preservation planner to give input on their proposal. And I didn't
Yeah.
have obviously detailed plans. I had a
Right.
schematic from here to here. And that was what I provided them, all the different things, from the fact that we have a cemetery and there's places that are possibly not even marked within that cemetery, as well as any of the historic structures, which there are quite a few in the 40s and 50s along Sparks Avenue. And that was something that I helped them prepare. So
yes, I
that was,
remember that,
you know,
Holly.
that was that initiation. I will.
Yes.
Okay. And I will say
and-
that, you know, COVID it has put a little damper in that.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
we don't
whole-
need
whole
to
thing,
rehash
as well
all of
as
that.
the loss of Mike.
I
Yeah,
just
I
hope
just
that
wanted to
they
mention that
eventually
for the
come to talk to us. We're going to give the feedback. Hopefully they'll think it's helpful. But, you know, they do need to file a project notification form with the Massachusetts Historical Commission. So, you know, they basically did what was required, which was if they want to get funds, they have to file that PNF, and that's what they asked for your help with. So if you want to pull up the sheet at some point, sheet 14 is the stretch of Sparks Avenue where Williams, how can I best, you know what, maybe I'm just going to speak generally about this. So the project plan area, it starts, the concept plan includes a roundabout at Four Corners. Four Corners is the intersection by the community pool in the high school. So this project does not include a roundabout, but the concept plan shows that the idea being that a roundabout would go in there. So we're not commenting on a roundabout. I would love to see a roundabout there. I'd like to see a mini roundabout there. Maybe we can comment separately about that and figure out how to get a mini roundabout if the commission, you know, on the table for the commission to discuss. Not a modern roundabout like at Sparks Avenue. I'd like to see a smaller one. But the project area goes from just before that corner all the way to the Sparks Avenue roundabout. It includes Williams Lane, and then it goes from Five Corners all the way again to the Sparks Avenue roundabout. And then on the other side of the Sparks Avenue roundabout, 2 Milestone Road is also included. So some of the things that our group observed, we talked a lot about the curbing style. The plan notes throughout that where there's concrete curb, it will be lifted and reset and or reused. So it says remove and reset or retain stone. I don't know why that's an or. You know, obviously we want to retain the high quality granite curbs. They're not really old curbs. So, but I think one of our comments would be that we want to retain these curbs, and we should probably get somebody to go and look at in detail at the curbs. I do have some photos and I have looked at them. So we would incorporate that into our feedback. We talked a lot where there is no curb and they want to have a curb. The recommended curb is what's called Cape Cod Berm. That makes it sound very beautiful. It's a triangle of asphalt, right? This is the triangular asphalt curbing. So I'm just gonna call it asphalt berm curb, okay? So that is going to be the treatment all along. And what we discussed was, this is obviously a very suburban treatment, but you know, we're also talking about mid-island. Mickey, do you want to make some comments about the curbing? And you know, I was like frankly against the curbing, but Ben and Mickey had a different view. So
You know,
we
the
can't hear.
reason,
Oh, okay.
in areas where they're proposing this Cape Cod berm is where the sidewalk or the multi-use path directly connects. It's right next to the road. So they need some sort of a separation between the path and the roadway pavement. One of the things we talked about was trying to actually suggest that they put a grass strip to separate those two pieces, so that there's some green space and some safety separation from bicyclists from the cars driving down the road. But where they are adjacent, and there's places that can't be avoided. In the outer areas, they've suggested the Cape Cod berm, and closer to the commercial areas, they're sticking with the granite curbing. As a bicyclist, I kind of like the notion of the Cape Cod berm because it's sort of easier to get on and off rather than a hard edged granite curb. Aesthetically, it's not quite as attractive, but I think that's more important closer to the commercial area rather than out of town. And in an area where we could encourage them to have a grass strip between the two path and the roadway, they don't even really need a curb. That could just be, there doesn't need to be it could just be grass, at the edge of the pavement, which is what you'd see out on a Milestone Road or Manicat Road. So there's different areas to consider regarding this curbing. It just changes depending on the area.
Yes, Tom.
I'm very much against that triangular macadam curving. If they put some of that out past the first bridge, before the first bridge, and the entrance to the landfill management facility offices. And if you ever go on that and your tires just happen to climb up on that just even a little bit, it swerves you back out into the traffic pattern immediately. And I'm just waiting for an accident to happen there. It's going to happen. I guarantee it. And I just think it's dangerous, especially having that somewhere in town there by the cemetery or the practice fields and down towards the Stop and Shop. I just don't think it's appropriate.
Well, that being, if there has to be a curb because of the proximity of the sidewalk to the pavement,
then I'd rather see a real curb, as well as a berm, like you say.
well, the berm I think would be ideal, but if you're
Or no triangular. I mean, just the berm,
Yeah.
right to the road.
Yes, Angus.
I think I agree with Tom. If there's not room and the path that has to be right adjacent to the street, it seems like a curb would make sense. And if there is room, as Maggie pointed out, the preference would be grass. But this Cape Cod berm that sounds like beautiful seagrasses and something, um, it does feel very suburban and doesn't feel like the character of Nantucket. So I feel like that's sort of neither here nor there. It's not meeting one or the other. I feel like it curb or grass.
Well, maybe what we should do, so this is really good feedback. We'll have another discussion about this, and maybe we can make sure that everybody has the plans and we talk about the areas. And maybe in the meantime, we can find out, why are they recommending this berm? I think I've noticed that the roads typically have either granite curbs or no curbs. They just kind of flare up a little bit at the edge, like Milestone Road doesn't have, they put in these triangular berms all around all the new intersections that they put in, if you want to have a look at them. But they don't have a curb there. And they may have decided now, with all the more stormwater issues, that they need to have some kind of way to control the stormwater. I think they're probably going to be putting in more catchments for drainage, which Nantucket has typically not had drainage catchments, and that might be something that's coming. So they might need to guide the water. So I certainly look at this as we're solving problems, we're identifying and solving problems. We're trying to solve them in the best way to keep the visual quality and to meet the needs of the road and the road users. So that's why it'd be really helpful if Rob McNeil would come, and maybe we can make that happen for a future meeting and talk about this curbing. So to highlight the grass strip, there were a number of areas where we felt like the multi-use path, we had to figure out how to have some grass in between the multi-use path and the road for aesthetics. So we didn't just have like it would be a 32-foot stretch of asphalt, but also for safety. I personally have had my 5-year-old on training wheels go off the Nantucket bike path straight into Nantucket Road because of there's, he lost his track, and then there's this berm that just channels you right, asphalt berm that just goes you right into the road, and it's terrifying. Fortunately, there was no traffic. So I think it's a safety issue that's outside of the realm of the historical commission, but it's also an aesthetic issue. So other areas, I would say there are lots of areas where we had no concerns. We had some questions we wanted to refer to the BPAC. The area of most concern was from Five Corners to the Stop and to Williams Lane. So that's an area, the owners have been consulted and quite involved in the discussions about this path. I know from talking to them that they really care about their trees all along there. I know they really care about the surface, that they don't want asphalt. They would have to provide quite a large easement because they own the property right up to the road. And as you know, it's very narrow. Cars can barely get by on Pleasant Street there. That area, just because it's some of the last kind of really rural looking area, it's very beautiful with the clapboard house in the middle of the field, and the trees along the side is sensitive historically and aesthetically. Then there's, after that house with the field, there's the ivy patch, and that's sunken. So it's proposed to grade it and fill it in and put, the asphalt path on top. Obviously, this homeowner is going to need to agree to this. This is private land. So we talked about possibly, maybe we can help a little bit here with some ideas. We also talked about the fact that there has been a proposal to make Pleasant Street one way. I think it would be one way to Five Corners. Is that right, Mickey?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that proposal did go to the Traffic Safety Committee. They didn't want to do anything on it. It was proposed to do it on a trial basis this winter. They did not want to do anything that would send more traffic to Four Corners. I happen to be using that area all the time, and I would also agree that having to go to Four Corners if you don't need to would be bad for everybody, yourself and the people who have to go to Four Corners. So, you know, I think we have to ask, well, if we put a roundabout in there and we could resolve the traffic problems, and the roundabout was aesthetic and as small as necessary, maybe we could make that one way, and then we wouldn't have to have a asphalt sidewalk and deal with trees. Tom, hand.
Yeah, making Pleasant Street one way there, I think would be an absolute travesty. That's a major thoroughfare back and forth across town. And we're talking about the old farmhouse and the house next to it, between the farmhouse and where the indentation is, where it dips down. Both of those houses are owned by the Phalens. They're not Nantucketers, but they've been coming here for a long time. And went and spoke with them about that. I used to be their caretaker, and I don't remember how they felt about that. We proposed that to them just because it was kind of not even on the radar, but it was sort of rumblings. And I don't remember what Joe Phelan said about that, but I'd be interested to see how they felt about the town putting in an asphalt sidewalk there. You know, I could see maybe a brick sidewalk or something like that, which more in keeping with the farmhouse in the area, but not an asphalt. That's just my personal view.
Yeah, and I think they would be happy to share their feelings. You know, they're quite engaged. I know they've been consulted on all of this. I'm just reacting to what's on the plan. You know, there's been a plan proposed, so we can react to what's on the plan. And you know, people may have moved on even from certain things that are on that plan by now. But that's just going to be a big issue. There's also utilities that need to be moved along there. So I'm just trying to see, were there any other high level? Oh, another big change is around Island Pharmacy across from the Stop and Shop. It's proposed to, like, right now that area it's really a mess, and there's always people wandering from the pharmacy to the Stop and Shop, and you know, there's also I don't know, there's just pedestrians that wander around there all the time, and there's these big dirt parking lots that don't have delineated spaces, so people don't know where to park. I think people don't know, should they park there and walk across the Stop and Shop if they're using both things. So what is proposed in this plan is angle parking, and it would involve an easement. But they are suggesting, just like on Main Street, we have angle parking, that they would create angle parking all in front of the Island Pharmacy. And we were okay with that. I mean, I was concerned about, this is not a historic issue, but concerned about safety, and the feeling is that people are moving quite slowly when they go through that area. But
That seems scary to me. On Main Street, it's one thing because there's cobblestones and there's a lot of pedestrian traffic and people are going relatively slowly, but Pleasant Street, people, like, that's where they're trying to pick up some lost time and they race along there. I can't imagine backing out of my angled parking there, but like you say, it's not our purview, I guess.
I'm with you, Angus.
I do want to mention one thing, is that the master plan has a mid-island area plan that's very specific on many different aspects. It's been vetted and approved by the NPEC, which includes parking and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to mention that.
yeah,
It is available on the town's website.
that's a great area plan, that mid-island plan. There's a lot of really wonderful ways of thinking in that plan. So, so that's one issue. I mean, we didn't have a problem aesthetically with the, you know, or for the character. We didn't find angle parking, you know, inherently out of character with that. It's like that area is about as suburban as you get. On, you know, it's a little town center with a big supermarket, and you need to be able to get in, get out, people need to do their shopping. So we didn't find, and again, I'm not speaking for the commission, we'll have a chance to talk about this, but so far I'm just flagging it as what it is. There were some areas where we felt the brick sidewalk that's there should like be continued a little bit longer. Generally, it's asphalt sidewalk wherever it's new. If there's brick, they're keeping the brick. There is a raised crosswalk proposed to the Boys and Girls Club, which we thought was a good solution to keep the kids super safe and slow everything down, and felt that, you know, we'd want to know about the details because those things can be really ugly. There were no details proposed, but certainly we didn't find any reason why a raised sidewalk would be inappropriate on Nantucket. I don't know if anybody else has a feeling about that.
When you say a raised sidewalk, what do you mean?
Crosswalk.
So
Crosswalk.
do you want to take that, Mickey?
Well, it's exactly what it is. I've seen them on the Cape and I've seen them in other places where it's basically, it's like a speed bump, but it's a raised platform where the width of a crosswalk with a gradual ramp up to it and down it. So they're effective. It slows down the traffic and it's very noticeable. So I think it's a good solution.
Okay.
Similar to the ones that are at the high school, just not as steep, because those were, when they created those were really steep, but they've flared them out a little bit better, but similar.
Even if children aren't present, if you're anticipating a raised portion, you're going to be going slower, which I think is good all the way around in that area.
Yeah. The hope is to create a new sidewalk all along Williams Lane. It would be a 5-foot wide asphalt sidewalk. They would need easements. They need to remove a lot of vegetation, remove and reset the fence. And
That on the north or the south side of Williams?
it's on the north side.
Yep.
And we felt that it should be granite curbing there, with an eased edge and a 4-inch reveal and a split face. Anyway, so I think the main our main comments were about that sensitive area along Pleasant Street, and probably one of the more challenging to absorb comments, but I think important, is breaking up the multi-use path and the roadway with a grass strip for aesthetic and safety reasons. And then we had some other small comments throughout. Did I get everything, Mickey?
Yeah, I think so.
So what I would propose is that for our next meeting, which is February 19th, we write this up, and we figure out how to get the plan shared with everybody and see if this would be something that we could pass on to the stakeholders, including the MHC, who is a stakeholder. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Holly?
On that note, I just wanted to remind if you're gonna also include MHC, make sure that there's something within the report that outlines the purview of section 106.
Yeah.
Which could reference obviously the historic nature of what's there, you know, the cemetery and those structures. Because if you're going to send that to MHC, you definitely want to make sure that is addressed. Yeah.
And
that's just my recommendation.
Thank you, Holly. And we wouldn't send anything without your review in advance as well. I did send them our report on pavement, because I think that is an important point to make. There's no real historic curb in this area, but in other areas there are, like the sewer project, which is digging up all of India Street. Just to make them aware that we have these artifacts that are historic resources, and that when they are signing off on these projects, that they should be sure to consider that. They're often more focused on the archaeological resources, because they have very good information about the archaeological resources because of Elizabeth Little's extensive cataloging of archaeological resources they're kind of top secret reports that the MHC has. But through all of our surveying effort, we'll be able to make them equally aware of the location of historic resources, including unconventional historic resources like pavement. Okay, I think we've covered everything. I haven't yet distributed the report to everybody who needs to get it. I will be doing that, the pavement report. I do want to mention that on Friday, February 19th, we will be hearing from the coastal resiliency people, right, Holly?
I know that you and Mary talked about having a meeting, Mary Longacre, but I didn't hear the confirmation, so I could have been out of that loop.
Yeah, so Vince, the coastal resiliency coordinator, requested to be on our agenda for February 19th.
Perfect.
And I think we've covered everything on our agenda. Look, we're right on time. Anything else?
Did want to mention, since we're on the subject of MHC in section 106, I did receive, I can't remember, oh, did I tell you all that I received a letter from MHC regarding the airport's master plan for 106? I think Hillary, you may have, sometimes they copy you, sometimes they don't. This one they did copy you on, but I will make sure this is scanned in and I can send that to you all. I have not seen anything else besides this. I
What about
also
the sewer?
The sewer I have received. The last thing I received anything on was, this is dated December 29th. Richard Grubb and Associates was consulted to do the archaeology. Again, the State Historic Preservation Office, the SHPO, Brona, she's an archaeologist. So archaeology is very, very near and dear to her heart, and knows that we don't have an archaeology ordinance here, a bylaw. So obviously really promotes that as a request. So I did receive a copy of the Mary Rainey, who's the archaeologist, with Richard Grubb and Associates. And I received a letter from MHC dated December 29th, but I did not receive it until the middle of January. Staff at MHC have reviewed and revised a post-review discoveries protocol, which is very typical for these, prepared and submitted by Grubb and Associates. The revised discoveries protocol has addressed MHC's December 16th letter comments. In staff's opinion, the project will have no adverse effect. So that's the biggest thing, no adverse effect on the island, provided that the following condition is met, which is the revised post-review discoveries protocol, which is very typical. So basically meaning if while during their digging, if they find anything, there's certain protocols that they have to do, notify them, those type of things. Very, very standard, very, very boilerplate. MHC looks forward to participating in any future consultation. So this is pretty by the book. I will say, if you're not familiar with Mary Lynn Rainey, she is an archaeologist that works for Richard Grubb and Associates. She also has done multiple years worth of archaeology work for NHA. And she's very, very familiar with Nantucket. If this was another organization from somewhere off that wasn't familiar with Nantucket, I wouldn't be as strong an opinion on this. She's great, so that's good. It's in good hands. If I haven't mentioned it before, the sewer department's consultants, Weston and Sampson, are excellent. They have been communicating with me. If there's anything that does come up during their individual, working on this, they will contact me and let me know. So I have full faith in them.
It's not that I don't have faith in them, but like we have not, there was a presentation of the select board. Libby notified me and said, you might want to pay attention. I'm not going to stand up at the select board and say, I have huge issues with this like really important sewer force main that needs to go in. But
Right.
I do have a lot of concerns about what they're going to do to the sidewalks. I mean, they're digging up all the sidewalks. They haven't, we don't have a sidewalk policy about how to handle old curbs in the sidewalk. They're digging up the really old curbs, and they're going to reset
They're not
them.
digging up the sidewalks. They're digging up the roads.
Well,
where
when
they've
they
already
presented
dug
to
up
the select
before.
board, they specifically said that they will have an opportunity to rebuild sidewalks along India Street and other areas. So I guess what I'm saying is, here's another example of a federally funded project that had a Section 106 review. It went directly to the MHC. We were not named a consulting party. It never came to this commission. And we would like to make sure, I want them to do their project, but I want to make sure that they are taking these old curbs and they're not putting them in an impermeable basin that will lead to their destruction and cracking, because they haven't read our preservation engineering report about how to set old curbs properly. So why is it that, we're saying like, well, we have this report and it's all great, but we've never seen it. I haven't even talked about it. I haven't seen that letter. I mean, isn't that kind of a problem? Am I being like flipping out over nothing?
Well, they've contacted me as staff, so I don't know why, you haven't been copied on anything. Again, we all agree that this whole format, COVID has not been the easiest thing, and I have taken fault and I apologize, but there has not been anything in the dark. I've met with them via Zoom, both David Gray, the director of the sewer department, as well as the folks at Weston and Sampson. I understand the need and respect the concerns that this commission has. That's my job as staff to make sure that they're taking this in consideration. I was told and many times that everything was going to be in locations within their route, because that was one of the things that I brought up to David's concern right at the beginning, right after the select board's presentation. And I was notified before the select boards, because I've seen how this train of disturbance, pretty much their route where they were going to go and which one was going to be the least, before the select board approved it. I got to see how it is evolved and where they decided they were going to go to. And the biggest concern was, this is going right through fish lots. This is going through some of the core historic aspects of our downtown. What is going to be disturbed? We want anything that's going to be disturbed as far as the road, the sidewalks, anything that it's put back like the like kind, same exact material goes back down, not replace it. And if they have to replace it, that's where we really need to be. But I was told that it was going to be in those areas that are already been disturbed down the center of the road. There was going to be some locations, for instance, down there where the C Street pumping station is, which is another Weston and Sampson fantastic project that they did. Obviously, for coastal resiliency standpoint, that project was been so well done on that 1923 pumping station that on a sidebar here, our consultant for our design guidelines, Phil Thomason, the one that's writing those draft design guidelines, is going to be using that for his other design guideline projects as a prime example of how to incorporate flood proofing mechanisms for a historic structure. So that's great. Weston and Sampson did a fantastic job on that. And they've explained the route, where it was going. There may be some areas where they may need to possibly change the accessibility for the sidewalk and stuff. I said, those are things that we would want to know specifics on. But my understanding from direct conversation with both their environmental person and their engineer and the sewer director is it was just going to be disturbed down the center of the roads, which have already been disturbed previously for other utility aspects. So I just want you to know that, I don't take this lightly. I've been reviewing, been looking at things. That's all I can say. I will make sure that you all get these letters, but this last one that's dated January, sorry, excuse me, not dated January. I'm looking at multiple things here. This last one that was just dated December 29th, 2020 from to DEP from Verona at the State Historic Preservation Office. I was the only one that was copied from the Historical Commission or HDC to Mary Lynn Rainey as well as Libby. So I will scan all these in. That one, I also received just recently on the 25th, 2 MHC letters regarding proposed brush cutting, heavy brush cutting along Mass Audubon as well as the Middle Moors. So one of them is going to be off of Bernard Valley Road and the other one off of Sauls Hills, which is Middle Moors. So I will also scan those in. It looks like both myself and Stephen Welch from the HDC were copied on this from town's perspective. So I will also send those in there. I will say this, MHC, some things other people get copied on, other people don't. I don't know what their deal is on that. So through Chris, I will make sure that not only will I be listed, Stephen as a rep for HDC, but also you, Hillary, as the chair for the Historical Commission.
Well, Holly, thank you very much, because these things have to come to the commission. This is not, I mean, we cherish you as our staff liaison, Holly, and I know, we all know how much you care and how good you are at your job. But these are commission level reviews. And, you know, you support us wonderfully, but the commission has to see, we haven't seen any of this. These things that come to and from the MHC, they have to come to the commission. And if we want to delegate them to you, if all of us voting and say, you know what, let's handle this through staff, then the commissioners will decide that. Can I hear from some other folks on this?
I'll try it.
Tom?
I couldn't agree more. You know, this is really important stuff, and I think that we need to be informed. And as Holly says, you know, she's right up to here with everything that's going on. So I get it, but I still think that we have to know.
It seems too that anything that the MHC is dealing with, we are the local representation of the MHC, and therefore we should be copied on anything that's relevant. I mean, in this particular case, what you're talking about, our primary concern is that they follow the guidelines that we've created. But yeah, I think we need to be aware so that we can support you, Holly, in your preservation work on Nantucket.
I don't see this as, you know, Holly's fault. I think that she got copied on it, but somebody who sent that needs to be aware that we need to be copied on it as well, or at least Hillary does, so that she can inform us. And so somebody needs to change that.
Clement, do you have any comments?
Again,
Sorry,
I will have
just hear
them
from
change.
Clement.
Well, I mean, obviously, we all support Holly with everything. But I just think to cover Holly, all of this stuff should go by this commission. And we can deal with as much of it as we can, but I just appreciate, I think that we're maybe the new commission that, except we've been saying that for so many years. We need to get on everybody's radar.
Yeah, and I mean, so you've now heard from everyone. We all agree. It's also, Holly, you know, it's a matter of public record. These are public meetings. So, you know, when we're advised of what other departments are doing as far as the reviews that the MHC is having, it brings it into the public realm. It's a public discussion. it surfaces potential issues. And, you know, you don't want to be, if someone, you know, on one of the historic streets in town has a big problem and says, how did this ever happen? And it's like, oh, well, you know, this happened and it wasn't public and it wasn't discussion. And I just don't think anybody wants to be in that situation. So the Section 106 process is for the commission to engage with. And anything that comes to and from the town and the historical commission of the state has to come to this committee.
I will email Chris and ask him for his guidance on making sure all the different departments and divisions of MHC make sure who the appropriate people are that are copied. I will say this, prior to this body's function or reenactment, the state would send, and they still do, to the HDC. And the HDC, obviously, for many reasons we all know, doesn't have the bandwidth to handle that. Some things they were able to, some things they weren't. A case in point, the whole 106 with the milestone. That's a prime example. They do know that I am staff liaison for both commissions, and gradually I have been involved again because, you know, again, the directors and other different departments know my role now. So so this doesn't happen, we'll make sure that those are taken care of. And I will also follow up with the Weston and Sampson with the Surfside. There's two projects. There's actually multiple different projects, but the point of the matter is that it is a large infrastructure project. It's obviously very important. And, you know, there has been no, I guess, miscomings. It wasn't done in anything intentionally. I do understand the role of this commission, but we're finally starting getting into more of a role, and it has been during COVID. So I will take the heat on that. However, I will make sure that you all are notified in anything I do. Again, I got something that was 2 weeks later after it was postmarked. So, you know, this system right now is terrible. If I was in my office all the time, that wouldn't have happened. There would have been more communication between myself, you, and them. So I will contact MHC to make sure that all Section 106, because some things come from other different departments and divisions with MHC and some things don't. So,
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I think also thank you, Holly. And I think also the MHC responds and copies the people who were copied. So when the sewer department or, you know, the airport, they know that they have to send information to the MHC. And what they should know is that anything that they send to the MHC gets copied to the NHC because we're the local authority. And I've asked Libby to please advise her staff that they do that. And it sounds like you need, you know, you will as well, Holly, I see you nodding. But more importantly, like, just tell them you can't go to, you know, the meeting is not between staff and the consultant, that the commission has to be involved. Unless we decide, unless we decline.
Correct.
Which we might do.
I understand that, but I also do want to let this commission know that, you know, there is a role that I do play as staff. So that was it was not anything to say that this is the formal review from this commission. It was to get my input as staff with the consultant, with the director of that particular department on moving forward. Explaining that, you know, you all, this was I will let you know this was pre any of the studies and reviews on our streetscapes. It was before we had Matthew come to Nantucket. So this was all pre that. You know, there is that level of trying to make sure that we're a National Historic Landmark, we're a historic district, who needs to look at certain things. Don't bother with the HDC. We have a historical commission. That's what they do. They're going to be looking at this, this, and this. Now, I will tell you this, you know, as staff, there is a level of professional, you know, support that I do play. So for instance, if there is an emergency, and this has happened, there's an emergency for a sewer backup, what have you, and somebody needs to get a permission to dig up from DPW to get in there from a sewer maintenance standpoint. I've been looking at things on Main Street, all different locations. but they understand that I need to make sure, again, that our we're not putting something back inappropriately, that it's like kind material, it's the same thing, and I want to know exactly where it's going to go. And I have done that. So, I just want to respectfully request or make sure that there's a mutual understanding here that, I am not hiding anything. A, B, I have the best interest at heart for preservation. C, anything that is federally required where you all have to review, I will make sure you have that before you, but that I do have a level of professionalism that I would hope you would put your, faith and trust in me, because I cannot come to you on every little aspect. But yes, Section 106, absolutely, that is your role. So I just want to leave you at
Yeah.
that. I do appreciate support.
Thank you, Holly. And you, of course, have our support and our gratitude. And I will express that again. So just to summarize, I think where we are is we expect to be involved in the Section 106 reviews, wherever and whatever they are on Nantucket. Holly is going to make sure that whatever comes to her gets copied to me, and she and I will work together to decide the role the commission should play. Working also with our vice chair, Angus, and the three of us work together to plan our agendas. And Holly will also talk to the MHC to make sure that they know when they receive stuff, if the Historical Commission of Nantucket is not copied, it needs to be copied. As far as the various projects, what I think I heard you say with this, I am concerned about the sewer. I want to make sure that their consultants know how to handle the old curbs when they encounter them. And I want to make sure I have eyes on the plan so that I can flag I can flag for the commission, and we as a commission can decide what areas are sensitive to bring special notice to. Now, did I hear you say that the MHC has approved that project, so the review period is closed? Sorry, you're muted.
There's multiple phases of the sewer line project. Obviously, we don't want to have the catastrophe that we had before. So of course, there's different aspects of it. So bear with me. As well as you probably already know too, that there's a project to get that, in order to get it to South Shore where the sewer beds are, there's going to be a newer pump station that's done on Surfside Road. So I believe that's the one. Yes. So the one I was referring to is the Surfside Road area sewer system improvements, which is to go towards the old Reese property, that they're building an actual structure there that actually went through the HDC before my involvement with HDC. But this is that part. Let's see. Then there's this is the one that I was included on with a pre-review. This was dated, this is the C Street Pump Station Force Main. So that's the one that Libby had sent the email to you on, because I think I was copied on that. And I did watch that select board meeting. And then after that select board meeting, I had conversations with David, who's the head of the sewer department, as well as Weston and Sampson. Because again, they actually, that was when they were getting the route approved with the select board. I have received, this looks like November 30th is when I received it. This is the C Street Pump Station Force Main number 3 to the Surfside Wastewater Treatment Plant, which is that new structure they're going to be building. See, they have John Hedden.
Is that the
here
one
as
that's
historical
going all
commission.
through town? Well, Holly,
Yes.
so if you could send me the communications you've received, and then maybe you and I and
Yes.
Angus consult about, where things stand and what should come before the commission, just so that we can make sure that the areas of concern that we have are communicated to the appropriate people,
Absolutely.
if we have any concerns, which we may or may not. Yes, Tom.
And so this is a perfect segue into something that, concerns me and some of the people on the street that I have. This is a perfect topic for what's going to I live on the second oldest street on Nantucket, and they're going down the street with sewer and water right now. And they've taken up a lot of the curbing. And we have cement curbing, we just have berm, we just have schist, we have granite, old granite, new granite, all kinds of things from Westchester Street to Lily Street that they have and haven't taken up yet. And when they do that in May, everybody on the street is concerned about exactly what is going to happen to all that. And so I would like to know from the town what they do plan to do. And if you could help me with that, Ollie, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, you all definitely have a mixture of curbing on that road.
Big time.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. To see what needs to go back there.
All right, so I appreciate this conversation. I think we learned a lot. Holly, I hope you felt supported in the conversation as well, because that's very important to us. And
Yeah, I mean, I just want to make sure that you all are aware that, you know, there are roles of my job that I can't come to you all on all the time. But if there's something that you all need to make a decision or review on, yes, absolutely. And I again, you know, it's unfortunate that you know, COVID has put a ugly head into a lot of things, and I don't know where some of these things stand. But you know, there is that level of professionalism that I believe as a planner for the last 15 years that I've been able to do. Preservation in Massachusetts is something that I've always wanted to do, and I'm very appreciative to being able to do it as a planner. So I just appreciate being able to work with you all.
oh, of course, and we appreciate you.
I
Yes,
need to
Tom.
go, Hillary.
Yeah.
If there's nothing else, you know, I move that we adjourn.
Okay, I just want to confirm that we're going to get copies of these things, and Holly and Angus and I will discuss them. Our next meeting is on February 19th. We will be meeting on the third Friday of the month thereafter, unless we need to insert another meeting. And it's great to see you all. I think we got a lot done. So Tom, thank you for your motion, and I'll just declare the meeting adjourned. Have a great day and a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.